Good morning children. Welcome to online teaching. Yesterday we have seen about the internal structure of the heart and we have seen about the cardiac cycle. Next we have seen about the evolution of the transport system in various organisms, that is from lower groups to we. So before going to today's lesson, let's recapitulate the internal structure of the heart. So we have seen about the internal structure of the heart yesterday. So that is by seeing the grooves itself externally, we can see the heart, it is divided into 4 chambers. The upper chambers of the heart are called auricles and lower chambers are called the ventricles. So here, in between the auricles and ventricles, we observe the septums, that is auriculoventricular septum is present. So these in the auriculoventricular septum, we observe 2 valves, that is tricuspid wall and pulmonary wall. And in the same way, between the left auricle and left ventricle, we observe 2 valves, that is bicuspid wall and aortic wall. These are the 4 valves, important valves that are present in the internal structure of the heart. So when we see the blood flow, the superior vena cava, which collects the blood from upper parts of the body, that is from the head and neck, and opens into the right auricle. So when we see the inferior vena cava, which collects the blood from lower parts of the body and opens into the right auricle. These 2 vena cavas collect the deoxygenated blood. So these deoxygenated blood from right auricle will be going through the tricuspid wall and goes to the right ventricle. From right ventricle, it goes to the pulmonary wall. From the pulmonary wall, this blood enters into the pulmonary artery. From there, it will be supplied to the lungs. So here, this pulmonary wall closes whenever the blood it wants to come back to the ventricles. So one way, these are one-way valves. It allows the blood to flow only in one direction, that is from ventricles to the pulmonary artery. So when we go for the left auricle, so the oxygenated blood is carried by the pulmonary vein from the lungs and keeps this oxygenated blood in the left auricle. From left auricle, through the bicuspid wall, the blood comes to the left ventricle. From the left ventricle, the blood goes to the aortic wall. From this aortic wall, the blood goes to the largest artery, that is systemic aorta. Through the systemic aorta, the blood will be supplied to all the body parts. So there the oxygenation will be carried out in the cells. Again the deoxygenated blood will be carried by the superior and inferior vena cava. So this cyclic process will be continuously occurring. And one important thing here is the blood is not pumped to the tissues continuously. It pumps at regular intervals. So then coming to today's topic, today we will be seeing about the lymphatic system in clear. Then we will go for the blood pressure, then blood coagulation. These are the 3 important topics that we will be covering today. So first let us see about the lymphatic system. How we have the atrial system and venous system. The another important system present in our body is the lymphatic system. So you know that the heart pumps the blood into the arteries. Into the arteries the blood is pumped. So from the arteries the blood goes to the capillaries. From the capillaries the blood goes to the cells. So when it is traveling from heart to arteries and arteries to the capillaries and capillaries to the cells, at these junctions between the connection between the capillary to the cells or arteries to the capillaries, there is a leakage of some fluid. So that fluid is called lymph, or we will also call it as tissue fluid. So the fluid that is leaking out in these junctions is called a tissue fluid, or we will also call it as lymph. So you might have observed during the long journeys, so your footwear won't be fitted to your feet. So because there will be a little swelling of your feet, that you can clearly see in the older people when they do long journeys, we observe the swelling of the legs. So that swelling of the legs in the older people is because of the accumulation of tissue fluid. So that accumulation of the tissue fluids in the feet causes swelling of the legs. That's what we will be calling it as edema. So generally these fluid which is left over in the junctions is collected by the venous system. The venous system, venules will be collecting these tissue fluid and it takes to the heart and again it will be circulated to the blood. But only some amount of the fluid only collected by the venules. So it leaves large amount of the fluid at the junctions. That fluid is again carried by the lymphatic system, and that will be released into the venous system, and it will be sent back to the heart. From the heart, again this blood will be sent with the nutrients to the cells. So that's why the lymphatic system plays an important role to remove the excess fluid in the junctions or in between the cells and the capillaries. So that fluid will be collected back and it will be released into the venous system, and venous system again sends this to the heart. Heart will be helpful to send these useful fluid along with the proteins, except solid particles is absent in the lymph. So when we see the difference between the lymph and the blood. So blood, it contains a liquid portion anyhow you know. So and it contains the minerals and it contains the cells. And solid particles are also present in the blood. So when we see in the lymph, it consists of only the liquid portion, and a little amount of the WBC will be present, and it does not have any solid particles in the lymph. So that is the main difference between the solid, that is blood and lymph. So the lymph will be playing an important role, or it acts as a link between the blood and the tissues. So it collects the excess, the nutrients that are necessary to the cells and sends to the venous system. Venous system will be again sending this useful material to the cells. So there is an important thing about the lymphatic system. Just like veins, the lymph also have the walls. Lymph also have the thin tiny structures, that is the lymph vessels. In the lymph vessels we observe walls. So these walls prevents the backward flow of lymph. So now let us take when the lymph is carried by the lymph vessels from the legs. If it want to go back, immediately the walls closes, does not allow the lymph to get back. So the walls will be helpful. If these are one-way walls, it allows the lymph to flow only in one direction. So that is about the lymphatic system, the most important system in our body. So next, we'll go to the next topic, that is the blood pressure. Generally, heart pumps the blood into the blood vessel. So this pumping of the heart is very necessary because it has to supply the blood to the body parts. So heart pumps the blood to the arteries. So that is necessary to supply, that force is necessary to supply the blood to the cells. So it has to travel long distance. In order to travel to long distance, it has to create a force. So that that force is necessary to supply the blood to each and every cell of the body. So generally you might have listened a word blood pressure from your mouths of your parents. So there is a blood pressure is nothing but the pressure created in the arteries by the heart to pump the blood to various cells is called the blood pressure. So generally the doctors use sphygmomanometer in order to measure the BP. So the instrument that is tied around the elbow, so that it is a sphygmomanometer which is used to measure the BP. Generally the BP will be 120/80. So that is 120 indicates whenever the ventricle contracts, it creates a large amount of the pressure on the walls of the artery. So that contraction of the ventricles is called ventricular systole. When ventricles contract, large amount of the pressure will be created on the walls of the arteries. So that pressure is called ventricular pressure. So we will be calling it as ventricular systole. So when the ventricles relax and it is ready to take the blood from the auricles, so that we observe a less pressure, so that we will be calling it as ventricular diastole. So this is the normal BP. So that is when the ventricles, when we see the structure of the heart, when both the ventricles get contract and pumps the blood into the arteries, it creates a large amount of pressure on the walls of the arteries. So that pressure is called ventricular systole. So almost all the blood will be sent to the arteries, that is systemic aorta and the pulmonary artery. After pumping all the blood, then the ventricles get relaxed. That relaxation stage it is called the ventricular diastole. So at a resting portion, so that is any person at the rest, if the BP is 120 by 80, so then we will be calling it as normal BP. So but these BP varies according to our activities. So that is when you do more exercises, or when we climb the steps, or when during the excited conditions, these BP will be high. So when you come to the rest and if your BP comes to the normal, so then no problem to the persons. But in some people at resting position, the BP will be more than 120 by 80. If BP is more than 120 by 80, so then we call it as high BP, or we will be calling it as hypertension. At the rest, if the BP rate is more than 120 by 80, then we will be calling it as high BP, or we will be calling it as hypertension. So that's why the people above the age of 40 years should check the BP once or twice in a month, so that they can be easily identified at the earlier stages and they can go for the proper medications. Now let's see what are the main causes for the BP. Main causes for the BP. So here, stress and strain for a longer time. So if they have problems for a longer period and the BP is more than 120 by 80 for a longer period, so then because of this stress and strain for a longer time is maybe one of the cause for the high BP. And second reason, smoking also causes the BP to increase. Alcohol consumption, regular alcohol consumption also increases the BP. And along with that, when we see eating of fatty food material, cholesterol rich food material, if they eat for a continuous, so that it may block the arteries, it may cause the BP. So these are the some of the causes which increases the BP in a person. So stress and strain for a longer period, smoking, alcohol consumption, and eating of more fatty food material. So now let's see what are the preventive steps you have to take in order to control the BP. So here, so what are the preventive steps? Means what precautions you have to take not to be increase this BP. So preventive measures. So here, avoid stress and strain. Avoid stress and strain is nothing but don't think more for anything. So get relaxed easily. So next, avoid smoking. Avoid smoking and also alcohol consumption. And diet control. Eat fiber rich food material and easily digestible food material, especially from the plant origin. So moderate exercise. So daily your body should need exercises, moderate exercise, and even when you can go for the yoga. And along with that moderate exercise, in order to get relief or relaxed to our body, you can go for the meditation. So if you follow these steps, at least we can get healthy to our body. That is, we can come to the normal blood pressure. So these are the things we have to follow in order to control our BP. So next we'll go for next important topic after the blood pressure. So now you might have understood about the blood pressure. So there is sphygmomanometer is used to measure the BP. So the normal BP is about 120 by 80. 120 indicates the ventricular systole when ventricle contracts. 80 indicates the ventricular diastole. So this is the relaxing phase of the ventricles. So generally at normal BP is 120 by 80. If it is more than 120 by 80 at the rest position, we call it as high BP or hypertension. So that's why the BP should be checked, the age above the 45 years, so that we can know what is our normal levels, or if it is increased or decreased can be clearly known. So the main cause for the high BP is stress and strain for a longer period. So we are seeing about what are the main causes for the more BP, that is more than 120 by 80, that is stress and strain for a longer period, that is more smoking and alcohol consumption and eating of more cholesterol food are the main causes for the high BP. So in order to prevent this high BP, so we have to avoid stress and strain and avoid eating of cholesterol rich food material, and you should maintain the diet that it should contain large amount of vegetables, or vegetarian diet is more preferable. So next you have to avoid smoking, and taking of more alcohol also should be controlled. So in order to maintain our body healthy, better to practice regular exercise along with yoga and meditation also helps to maintain our BP. So these are some preventive measures. If we do it properly, so we can maintain our BP at a normal rate, which is necessary for our healthy body. So next we'll go for next important topic in our transportation. That is, you might have learned about the blood groups and blood cells in the 9th class. Next, the most important topic we'll be seeing about the blood coagulation. So which is necessary to keep us living. So that is nothing but whenever a cut or injury occurs, a large amount of the blood will be lost. If there is no blood coagulation, so it may result to the death of the person. Now let us see how this blood coagulation occurs. So whenever any cut or injury occurs to our body, blood flows out from our body. So here within 3 to 6 minutes the blood will be clotting. So that is nothing but the blood coagulation. Even though it is a simple for us to listen, but there is a process how this blood coagulates. So here whenever any cut or injury occurs to a nail. Now let us take when you are sharpening any pencil, you got a cut on the finger, so that the blood comes out from the body. So here immediately when the blood comes out, here the platelets plays an important role. You know that the blood, it contains 3 types of blood cells: red blood cells, white blood cells and platelets. So the platelets or thrombocytes plays an important role for the blood coagulation. So the platelets release an enzyme called thrombokinase. So these thrombokinase will act on prothrombin. So these are the proteins that are present in the blood which will be helpful for blood coagulation. Thrombokinase acts on prothrombin to convert into thrombin. And these thrombin act on fibrinogen. So these fibrinogen is converted into fibers, or it will be converted into fibrine. So these fibers, wherever you get the injury, these fibers form a network. That is, these fibers will attach one end to the another, along with the blood platelets entangle here and does not allow the blood to come out of the body. So this will be calling it as the layer that is formed on fresh injury, so that we call it as blood clot. It does not allow blood to come out of the body. So that is about the blood coagulation. So once again we will see, whenever you get any cut or injury, the platelet gather at that place, immediately it secretes an enzyme called thrombokinase. These thrombokinase will activate prothrombin to convert into thrombin. So that thrombin will convert fibrinogen into fibers. So these fibers will be forming a layer-like structure on the top of the injury. So these fibers attach one to the other, and it forms a network or mesh-like structure on the surface of the cut or the injury. Along with that, the platelets entangle here does not allow a drop of the blood also to come out from the body. So this is called a blood coagulation. Generally, vitamin K is necessary for blood coagulation. Vitamin K is necessary for blood coagulation. If we have sufficient amount of vitamin K in our body, so then the blood coagulates within 3 to 6 minutes. But in some people, because of hereditary disease, so that is nothing but the hemophilia. So the blood won't stop from the injuries. The blood continuously goes out from the body. So that type of defect, genetic blood disorder that we observe in the children whose parents are married relations. So that is it is a inherited diseases. It will be get because of the marrying the relations. That is we observe if they are the parents are related. So then we observe the hemophilia, that is a genetical disorder. Along with that, we see the other type of genetical blood disorder is that is got because of marrying the relations, that is among the blood relations. So that we observe in thalassemia. Thalassemia is another type of genetical diseases. Where we observe here there is a deficiency in hemoglobin protein. So that is, you know that the hemoglobin is the oxygen carrying protein present in the blood. So generally in our body the hemoglobin levels are normal. It binds to the oxygen and it carries the normal oxygen. So but in these people there will be the deficiency of hemoglobin protein deficiency observed. So that it leads to the severe and mild anemia. We observe a severe anemia and mild anemia. So this severe and mild anemia is nothing but alpha thalassemia and beta thalassemia. So these are the two thalassemia that we observe. So nearly 10,000 to 12,000 children are every year born because of this born with this thalassemia disease. So what is the main cause is you have to not marry the blood relation people. So that is that, and pre-marital screening should be done. So if the people with this genetic disorder, so we have to take a proper steps not to be got to the children. So that is one thing. And regular blood transfusion. So regular red blood transfusion should be done in order to treat the children with the thalassemia. So that is one thing, and the medicines are also very costly to treat this thalassemia. So mostly the children with this thalassemia will show the symptoms, that is we observe reduced growth. Growth will be very reduced, and second thing that is they will be severe anemic, and third thing we observe the fragile bones, and immune system also will be weak. So they don't have immune power will be less. They don't have strong immune power. So they frequently suffers from the diseases, and sometimes they will be also getting the cardiac problems. So these are the some symptoms we will be observing. So immediately after the birth, within the year, the child should be identified. So if they have the reduced growth and hemoglobin levels falls suddenly, so that time the children should be immediately taken to the doctor. The doctor will be identified that the child have the thalassemia or not, so that if they treated immediately, they can be recovered or they can lead a normal life. So for them, the most important thing they have to do is they have to regular blood transfusion should be done. That is concentrated red blood cells which have high hemoglobin percentage should be transfused to the child. And along with that, the another important thing you have to do is now we have the latest treatment, that is bone marrow stem transplantation. From the related siblings which have the same genetic constitution, their bone cells are taken and transplanted into the thalassemia patients so that the normal hemoglobin percentage can be maintained in thalassemia children.